All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to October's guest expert training with none other than Ashley Garland. I feel like we should have like episode followers, but we won't do that. I'm super excited that you guys are here. I'm sure we'll have more people pop on in the next few minutes. But what I would love for you guys to do, for those of you that are on live, is to please introduce yourself in the chat. Just let us know your first name, what city you're coming from, and then what kind of business you run, because that's going to help give Ashley a bit of context as she's chatting today just about what you guys are doing with your time. So if you want to do that, and then we're going to get started we'll give people another minute or so while some of those introductions come through. So if you guys want to use the chat feature, make sure that you just click the little chat icon button at the bottom, and that's what we'll be using. And there we go. Christina is done. Christina's outside of Madison, Wisconsin, and she is a web developer.
I've heard such good things about Madison.
Have you?
Yeah, I've heard it's just a charming little town.
I don't know that I've heard much about Madison, but that's interesting to hear. It's amazing.
So nice.
Says it's amazing. I love it. So good. Yes, Lauren is a small business growth strategist from Palm City, Florida. Chelsea, Virginia Beach. Oh, you just worked with Ashley recently. That's awesome.
Yeah, we just did a quick strategy session. It was great.
Oh, so fun. I love it when people know each other. That's good. And you're in Virginia Beach too. Oh, yes. Crystal's in Elmira, Associate Director for Breakthroughs. I love what you guys do. It's so good. So Crystal works out of business actually close to in the same city as where I live.
Okay.
So we know each other in real life. It's kind of those weird things, right? You've got these virtual connections and you think you know people, but then it's like, oh, but we've never given each other a hug. So do we know each other, or do we just sort of know each other? Anyway, it's good. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining in. Just a reminder, we'll be using the chat. So if you've got something you want to I love that, Crystal. Hugs need to happen. They do. Hugs are awesome. If you've got a question or a comment or something that Ashley says you were just like, oh, that was good, feel free to retype it out if sometimes you need that reminder of ooh, that was good. Feel free to quote her, ask questions throughout, and I'll let her chat about that as we get started. Yes, Debbie, I know you like hugs. We know each other in real life too. It's so good. All right, so let me do the briefest of introductions. I feel like I could say a lot of things about Ashley, but what I will say is this. I don't remember the first time we had a coffee chat. I think it was a year and a half ago. It was right after my daughter was born, I think. She was just a few months old, I think. And I just remember getting off the call and being she was just a breath of fresh air. And that's still how I feel about you and your community and everything that you do, because she's super, super passionate about keeping things simple. And what I believe in being intentional with every area of your life is that when you are intentional, things are going to be more simple than they're going to be complicated, because complicated isn't intentional. Complicated is the default for so many things. And so it's interesting because I used to think that simple was easy. And as I've gone through and over the last, especially 5 or 6 years, realized actually simple can be really hard, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. So anyway, I'm really excited about today's training. She's going to be jumping into how to simplify your to-do list, which I think is something that we can all benefit from. So I'm going to leave it to Ashley. She'll do her official introduction. And I know that some of you follow her or are in her Facebook group with me as well. And then I will pop in later, but please feel free to ask questions as we go.
All right.
All right. Over to you. I'm going to
go ahead and share my slides and let me know if you can see them all. Let's see. Does that look good? We're good? Okay, I'm going to assume you guys can see them. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So you guys, like Catherine said, I am all about simplifying, and we're going to talk today about 3 steps to simplify your to-do list, because it's a really easy place to start. So I always find it helpful at the beginning of a workshop to just get a little reminder to unplug from distractions, turn the phone off, get out of your inbox as much as you can, and just focus on what we're talking about here. Catherine mentioned that there is a workbook that goes along with this, and I'm actually going to give you the time to take the steps throughout this workshop, because my goal is always to make sure that you don't. I'm just going to check the chat real quick, guys, and make sure you guys are. Oh, okay, I think you can hear it. Okay. Oops. Sorry, guys. Let me just having a little tech problem here. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to, like I was saying, I'm going to have you guys go through this workshop and actually do the things, because my goal is for at the end of it, for you guys to walk away and not feel like you have something else on your to-do list that you need to tackle now. So go ahead and grab that workbook if you still haven't gotten it. And if you don't have it yet and you just need to use a piece of paper, that's going to work just fine too. And then definitely ask questions as they come up. So pop them into the chat. I've let Catherine know she's welcome to interrupt me at any time if there's an urgent question. Otherwise, we'll go through them at the end and really make sure you get all your questions answered. And then make sure that you stay tuned until the end, because I'm going to talk about how we can connect more after this is done. So you guys are in the right place. It sounds like most of you guys are business owners. So if you've experienced some success as a business owner, but behind the scenes, things feel a little uncertain, a little shaky, a little bit of, like most of my clients would say, a hot mess behind the scenes. If you find that you're feeling overwhelmed and you feel like you're always behind and never getting through your to-do list, like this is a great place for us to be connecting. And then finally, if you've been feeling like, hey, I've got so much to do and there's got to be a better way to manage all this so that I can be focused and intentional and productive in my business, you are absolutely in the right place. But I also want to say that Catherine has shared that some of you guys aren't business owners. So I want you to know that if you do not run a business, you can absolutely use this process to benefit you working on your life to-do list. Like if you have a lot of stuff going in your life and you're trying to juggle it, this is a really great way to simplify it for your life too. So like Catherine said, I am a business coach. I work with women entrepreneurs who really want to simplify and streamline their business. And it's not just about doing that because it sounds like it's a nice thing to do. It's actually about doing it because they're very clear that it's the thing that's going to help them experience more growth and take their business to the next level. And they also know that if they're able to simplify, they're going to find more fulfillment with their work and they're going to enjoy more freedom in their life. I don't know about you guys, but that's a big piece of the puzzle for me. I have been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole life, adult life at least. I've been doing this since I graduated from college, and I've run a couple of businesses, and I really have always focused on doing that in a very simple and sustainable way, and also help my clients do the same thing. And then finally, it took a while for me to see this as an asset, but I'm a really productive, organized person, and I used to see that as type A and not an exciting thing. But I've been told by people that I get more done by noon than most people get done in an entire day. And that definitely benefits me as a business owner. And I'm excited to share one of the tools today that helps me do that each week. Just quickly, I want to share with you guys why I've made simplifying my thing. So like I said, it leads to more growth in your business. And it can feel really counterintuitive. People think you need to hustle more and do more in order to drive more growth in your business. But it's actually when you simplify and streamline things that you're able to scale and you're able to reach the next level. And then it's also about bringing more fulfillment to your work. So when you simplify, you're able to get back to the things that you love doing, likely the things that you got into business in the first place for. And so you feel this sense of fulfillment that you very likely didn't feel before when you were wearing all the hats. And then finally, this is that big one for me. It creates more opportunities for freedom in your life. And my clients run the gamut between what freedom means to them. It might be that they really want to take a week off every month to travel, or they want to be location dependent. It might be that they just want to really give to their health and wellness. Or, in my case, like I really want to be a present mom. And so I like to work just in the middle of the day when my daughter's in school, and I like to be the person who picks them up. So whatever freedom means to you, simplifying can help you get there. So today we are focusing on simplifying your to-do list, because when I think about how I want to show you guys how simplifying works, I really want you to experience some tangible wins so that you can not only see what it feels like to simplify, but so you can also see what it can actually create for you. So your to-do list is a great place to start. I do a couple other trainings around simplifying different parts of your business, but this is such an easy win, and it's a place that you can start building strong habits. And when we get this piece in place in your business, it's so nice because it's something that you use every single week. So it can guide a lot of growth and productivity if you're able to master this approach. So I hate to do finger pointing, but I do want to just shine the spotlight on a few reasons why your to-do list maybe isn't working so well for you right now. So there's no shame if these are things that you can relate to, because we can almost all relate to them or have been able to relate to them at some point. So the first thing is that your to-do list is too long, right? So you maybe have pages and pages of stuff that you need to do, or maybe you've got it stored somewhere online. But whatever it is, it's, you've got too much to work through, and it's impossible to find your focus because there's so much to handle. There's so much that you've got in your eyesight, and it's just it's too much for you. And then another mistake that I see people making is they store their to-do list in multiple places. So they might store it in their head. They might store it in the notes section of their phone. They might store it in their planner or just on sheets of paper throughout their house. It's all over the place. And what happens is you've got a bunch of scattered to-do lists, and then there's no real command center that's guiding your daily or weekly tasks. And then the final reason why to-do lists usually aren't working for my clients and my community is that they just haven't created a habit around how they're going to prioritize the tasks on the list. And that's a really easy thing to fix. And in fact, all of these things are pretty simple things to fix, because the secret is that your to-do list is going to help you focus and is going to improve your productivity. But it's only going to do that if you stop, just filling out sheets of paper and start focusing on organizing it. So this is the point that my clients are always like, I'm already doing a to-do list that already feels like enough. And isn't it maybe a little overboard to organize my to-do list, a little type A, a little anal? And I always say that, you can keep doing things the way that you're doing them if it's working for you. But generally what I see is that people are using their to-do list as a dumping ground for anything and everything. And that should not be the case. What it should be is a really clear, prioritized list of the things that you need to be focused on right now, so that you can use it to guide your productivity and be really intentional in the actions that you're taking. So I'm going to give you guys a little preview of what we're about to do here. So we are going to learn how to simplify your to-do list so you can stop feeling like you have so much to get done. If that's the only thing that happens for you in this workshop, I would consider that a huge win, just to take that pressure off of you and help you feel like there's not so much that you need to worry about getting done. We are also going to stop that cycle of, overwhelm and procrastination that strikes when you look at the to-do list. The one where you look at the list and you realize it's 2 pages long and you think too overwhelmed to even get started. So you decide, I'm just going to go watch Netflix on the couch for a few hours because it's just too much. We're going to stop that cycle by helping you streamline things today. And then finally, I want to help you have a system to start organizing your to-do list so that you can use it to find your focus and increase your productivity, and so that you can get stuff done in your business. So during this workshop, you guys are going to discover how to organize your to-dos in a way that really makes sense and that leads to intentional action. You're going to learn how to identify the items on your list that just don't belong there. And I know that that might seem a little bit challenging right now to see what you could let go of, but there are always things there. And when you get some added perspective from the outside, you can start to see what those things are that you can let go of. And those are very often the things that are causing the unnecessary overwhelm. And then finally, we are going to talk about the things that you can keep doing yourself and keep owning and do well, and the things that you could pass off to somebody else. So guys, let's get started. So hopefully you guys all have your workbooks ready and ready to just dive right in. So I'm so excited that we are doing this on a Monday, because it feels like the perfect day to outline your to-do list for the week. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do a brain dump. So in your workbook or on a sheet of paper, I literally want you to write down every single thing that you think needs to happen this week right now. So what our goal is here is to really get everything out of your brain and onto paper so it can stop kind of spinning and ping-ponging around in your head, so we actually have something for you to see and organize. And then as you're doing this brain dump, I want to encourage you guys to be really specific and not just write broad projects. I want you to write down the actual tasks. So instead of saying, launch my podcast, write down the tasks that you're going to need to do this week to launch the podcast. That's just one example. There are many. And then finally, if you are listening to this and you are a business owner, I would really recommend keeping this list to your business related to-dos, because, as entrepreneurs, like, our life and our business blend so well that sometimes we need to put some boundaries in place. And this is a great way to do that. So I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes here. I'm going to set my timer, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that brain dump and really get everything out and onto that sheet of paper. So go ahead and get started. Putting things on your to-do list, keep dropping them on there. That's totally fine. You might find that even after the workshop, you need to add a few more things and organize them, and that's absolutely fine. I'm going to keep moving on so we can keep working through this and you guys have time to learn these next steps. So step 2 is about categorizing your to-dos and really creating a system to organize everything so that when you sit down, you know what's most important. So really what we're trying to fix here is when you sit down and everything on your task list appears urgent because it's all equally weighted the same. We want to create some prioritization and organization here for you. And that is why we employ what I call the 3 Ps. There are a couple ways to describe these things, but I like to call them the 3 Ps because it's really easy to remember when they're all start with P and the nice alliteration. So the first thing that you need for a category is things to prioritize. Those are absolutely the things that are most important to get done that week. The second category are things to pass off. You could also say that as the things to delegate, things to outsource, to a system or tool or a partner or a contractor. And then finally, the third category are things to pause. And these can be the hardest ones for really high achievers to let go of, but there are always some things on your list that you can delay for a little bit of time. So I want to break down each category, walk through some examples so that you guys actually see what's included in there so you can start to see similarities with your own to-do lists. So things to prioritize. These are often deadline-driven to-dos or projects that are really timely or seasonal. So if you run a business where you have things that are coming out, for the holidays, or that the beginning of the year is going to be a big push for you for something, a product or a launch, then you might have some deadline-driven to-dos that are related to those things. Or you just might have some deadline-driven to-dos that are related to, like, maybe you're going to be appearing on a podcast or doing a workshop or something that has a date attached. Those are absolutely things to prioritize because you can't let them slip. And then I often include my client work on things to prioritize because it's such an integral part of my business, at least. And if you're in the same boat, you might find that the things that you prioritize each week are your client calls or the projects for them. And then finally, I love to make sure that on my prioritization list that there is something that is tied to growth or revenue of my own business. So there's something that's going to be me working on my business that's a task or a big picture project that's going to actually move the dial forward in my own business. So when I look at my prioritization list, the breakdown from my to-do list and those couple of things that I'm going to prioritize, those are the things that I want to see on there. And those are the things that I'd love to see on yours as well. So the next category are things to pass off. So this can be a hard thing if you haven't started letting go of stuff. So we're going to kind of take some baby steps forward here and at least give you a plan and give you some guidelines as to what are some tasks that you could pass off. So I often say that the best things to pass off are the things that other people can do more effectively or efficiently than you. Because if they can do it more effectively, well, that's kind of obvious. You want them on your team doing that because they can do it better than you can do it and get you better results. If they can do it more efficiently, that means they can do it faster than you can do it and free up more of your time for really important work in your business. And then finally, some other things that I like to pass off are just the to-dos that take you too long or that you can do, but they totally drain you, so you just should not be doing them. Or maybe they fall outside your area of expertise. And then finally, this category, things to pause. Again, this can be a really hard one to let go of because we want to do all the things and we want to be really proactive and productive in our business. So I often look through the lens of when you're looking at something to pause, really consider what are the tasks that are not contributing to the growth of your business? What are the things that maybe you've been doing for a long period of time, but they're actually not contributing in any way, and they're just a habit? And maybe you can let go of them or pause them for a short period of time so that you can better evaluate if they are still something that you need to do each week. And then I also like to say, pause on things that feel like a should to you. If you've been told you need to be on 5, 7, I don't even know how many social media platforms there are out there anymore, but if you've been told you need to be on lots of them and you find that you would prefer to just really focus on 2, then maybe you pause on engagement and posting in those other ones for the time being, because it just doesn't feel like the right fit for you and it feels like a should. And then finally, this is the one that I'm often really guilty of, is to-dos that you don't really need to worry about until a far off date. If you're someone who likes to be really proactive and turn in things ahead of time, you may be putting to-dos on your list and causing unnecessary stress for things that you really don't need to worry about for another week or month. So that's definitely something that you can pause as well, something that the deadline is farther off and it's not really benefiting you to worry about it and stress about it up front. So I thought it might be helpful for you guys to see a peek at the breakdown of one of my own to-do lists from, weeks and weeks ago. But just to kind of see how I categorize some of my to-dos, might give you an example of how you can do it with yours. So from this particular week, what I wanted to prioritize was I was creating content for a new workbook. And I knew that that needed to get done that week. And I really wanted it to get done. So I knew I needed to carve out a good chunk of time to write the content for that and develop the content for that workbook. I also knew that I had a podcast interview coming up. So that was one of those deadline-driven to-dos where I really needed to be on my game and prepared for that in time for the interview. And then finally, I included a little client work on the things that I was prioritizing. I think when this to-do list was in play, I had a couple of client coaching intensives booked, and I needed to do a little prep work for them where I just went through and looked at those people's businesses and read their forms that they had filled out before the intensive and just made sure that I was ready to go when we jumped on the call. So those are the things where when I sat down to work each day, those are the things that I was focused on, and the rest I didn't really need to worry about as much. When it came to things to pass off that week, I knew that I was going to have this content for the new workbook, and I knew that if I designed it, it would take me hours upon hours and it wouldn't even look that good. So I knew that I needed to hand off the design for the new workbook because it was something that somebody else could do more effectively and efficiently than I could. So I passed that off to a great designer that I contract with. And then I know that I write a weekly newsletter every week. And so I passed off sending out the newsletter. I pass it off every week, to be honest, because it's involving tech and I'm not great with tech. So I create the content and I pass it off to my team and they handle the rest of it. And finally, on this particular week, I was having some challenges with my scheduling system. It was nothing on their end, but just I needed to update some things so that the schedule that you saw online matched the schedule that I needed to have in my personal life at that time. And so I just needed my online business manager to go in and make those adjustments. So those are the things that I passed off. And you can see how just clearing off those 3 things from my plate really freed up a lot of my time and energy and created more freedom in my own life. And also I can say that it didn't cost me very much, hardly anything at all, to outsource those things. And then finally, the things that I paused this time around were the email funnel for the new workbook. It would have been very easy for me to try and cram it all in and say, while I'm working on the content for the new workbook, I'm also going to try and cram in this extra to-dos and write a bunch of emails for this new workbook. But doing both those things at once wouldn't have been a great use of my energy, and trying to write the funnel before I had the content for the workbook done just didn't make sense. So I decided to pause it for another week. And then I also realized that I had a live workshop going around that time. And, the workshop was a couple of weeks away, and I realized that I could pause on preparing for that so that I could really focus on the podcast interview, my client work, and this new workbook. And then finally, for me, a thing to pause that was kind of feeling like a should was I should update or overhaul my Instagram profile. I kept hearing all these experts say I needed to add all these bells and whistles to it. And I realized that it wasn't really something that I felt I wanted to do. And so I decided to pause on that until it did feel more urgent or until I thought it would actually drive results in my business. So as you guys go through your brain dump, I want to give you the tool to organize this now. This is kind of the step-by-step process of what you're going to take that big brain dump and we're going to categorize it now. So first, I want you guys to star the things that you want to prioritize this week. And there really shouldn't be many of them. I always say 3 is a great number, 5 max. And then I want you to circle the tasks that you'd like to delegate. You'd like to pass off to a team member, to pass off to a contractor, or even just a tool. I think a lot of people overlook that, the fact that you can pass things off to some piece of technology and it'll do the work for you. So definitely circle the things that you want to delegate, and then next to them, identify who or what tool you'll hand them off to. And if you're feeling like this is going to be a big task for you to delegate all these things, no, it doesn't all have to happen at once. What we're giving you right now is a plan and some intention setting so that you can start doing those things. And then finally, when it comes to the things to pause, I want you guys to just lightly cross them off as a reminder you're not focused on them right now. And we're going to do something with this document in the next step. But for right now, just star the things you want to prioritize, circle the things you want to pass off, and lightly cross off the items that you want to pause for now. So again, I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes. Look at my calendar or my clock here. Give you the 5 minutes, but I am going to leave this slide up so you guys have the steps that you need to take. So go ahead and get started and pop any questions into the chat as they come up.
And just a quick note for anyone watching the replay, I'm actually pausing the recording during these 5 minutes, so you take as long as you need and then come back when you are done.
Thank you. Brilliant, Catherine. Guys, 2 more minutes. Guys, I'm going to move on to the next step, but if you guys are still working through this, absolutely keep going. So step 3 is really simple. This is about plugging it in. If you guys have the workbook, you'll see that there is a sheet of paper where you can take those things that you starred and put them in the category of things to prioritize. You'll see that you can take the things that you want to pass off, and you literally in your to-do list can write down, here's the task and here's who or what I'm passing them off to. And then there's a section for things to pause. So what I want to encourage you guys to do is to take what you just did and then plug it into the template. And then also week to week, what you can do is you can just print off that one page of the guide and use it to organize your to-do list every single week. So I think you guys showed up today and you stuck around because you're really tired of feeling like you've got this unmanageable to-do list when you start work each day, that it's feeling overwhelming to sit down and see all those things that you need to be doing. And you want to believe that there's some system or tool or approach that's going to help you figure out how to manage it all and get through them while also getting out from under that overwhelm that you're feeling. And then I think that you guys also probably showed up because somehow you had this feeling that your business has the possibility to have more growth and to really be more than it is right now if you could be a little more focused and productive. And that you believe that, hey, like maybe simplifying your to-do list is a really small win, a really great place for you guys to start. So now that you guys know how to simplify your to-do list, now that you have this approach down and can see that the 3 steps are, you can start using it to increase your productivity and to guide your focus in your business. So you can be really intentional about the work that you're doing and the actions that you're taking week to week. But I've also led this workshop a couple of times, and I know that sometimes people say, okay, I had this aha about how to manage my to-do list, and they start wondering, if I simplify other parts of my business, what's next for me? So I want to give you guys a couple of options here. Step 1 is absolutely use this system to get your to-do list in order. So I would suggest, I know you guys are talking about habits, and we all know they take a while to form. So I would do this for a couple of weeks at the very minimum and get in the habit of doing this so you can see how much it can create for you. So that's step 1. Step 2, Catherine mentioned I run a Facebook group. It's called the Simplified Entrepreneur Community, and I want to invite all of you guys to join and connect there. It's a place where I share resources and free trainings and answer questions, and where I really invite you to connect with other small business owners and entrepreneurs who are also taking the steps and doing the work to simplify and streamline their business, which is sometimes it's nice to just connect with people who are on the same path as you. And if you do, click that link and join the community, or if you just go onto Facebook and search the Simplified Entrepreneur and request to join, I really want to encourage you guys to jump in and say, hey, I was on the to-do list training this week, and these are my top 3 priorities that I'm focused on this week, just to give you guys a little bit of added accountability. So that's step 2. Step 3, if you guys are liking this approach and you're feeling like, the stuff I shared at the beginning of the workshop, you're interested in learning about how you can simplify your business so that you can grow more, so that you can experience more fulfillment, and so that you can enjoy more freedom in your life, I want to invite you guys to schedule a free discovery call. So if you guys have done these with other people, you probably know what a discovery call looks like. But the way that I run them is we really are going to spend some time connecting one-on-one and talking about your particular business. We can absolutely talk about the work that we did here today on your to-do list, but I also want to look at the bigger picture. I want to talk about your business, and I want to talk about how you can stop hustling so hard so that you can actually work less and profit more. And I know that that probably sounds counterintuitive, but I promise we can get the pieces of the puzzle in place. And then I want to spend some time really looking to the future and talking about where do you want to go from here, and really start to identify what's possible for you in your business if you're willing to take the steps to simplify. Like Catherine said at the beginning of this training, sometimes simplifying isn't easy, but I can promise it's always worthwhile. And then finally, on this call, I want to make sure that we spend some time identifying the key steps that you can take personally to streamline your business. They're a little bit different from everyone, even though there is some overlap. So I want to get some really personalized action items for you so that you can grow to the next level. And like I say here, finally start making that daily yoga class. If that's not the thing that you want to simplify for, if it's so you can pick your kids up at school, or so you can, just work 3 days a week, like whatever the reason is, we're going to make that happen for you. So if you guys want to book one of those discovery calls, again, they're free. They're 45-minute calls. I'd love to do them with you. You can click, I don't know if you guys can click the link, but that's the link to book the discovery call, and I can put it in the chat too. And then, or you can just email me. I'm super accessible. So if you want to just email me about it, it's ashley@ashleymgartland.com. That's really it, guys. So I'm going to pop out of the screen share here and back here. And then let me know what questions come up. I'm going to open the chat box too so I can see everything.
So the interesting thing is that this is the least chatty our chat box has ever been. And I think it's because everyone's been doing the work.
Good. Well, I think it's so, I feel like it's way too, it would be too ironic, right? For me to be like, we're going to clean up your to-do list, but I'm actually going to give you one more thing to do when we're done. Like we've got to do this on the workshop.
Yeah, totally. Well, and that's the thing with planning parties too, right? Is that we always are doing our planning like while we're on the party. So, but for those of you, there's still a couple of people had to leave because of doctor's appointments and stuff. But for any of you guys that are on live, now that we've gone through this process, what questions do you have for Ashley? Maybe something that as you were going through, you were like, what? 3 things? Like, for a week? Like, what does this look like? So please drop your, questions in the chat so that we can talk about those. I'm going to start with a question while we see what else comes up. I used to think I had a pretty like streamlined, like simple business. And then I started working 2 days a week and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So what about those times? Well, and sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's good, but then sometimes I overcommit, not necessarily intentionally, but all of a sudden like things stack up and I didn't realize something was there or whatever. So how do you recommend that when we get overcommitted or when we legitimately have based on deadlines, right? Because you talk about deadline stuff. So based on deadlines and clients, what if we have like significantly more than 3 things that we need to do in a week? What is your recommendation for approaching that? Because I think a lot of us find ourselves in the spots. It's like, okay, well, this is ideal, but I just need to get through these next 2 weeks with all these deadlines so that then I can get back down to like doing less and like keeping it really focused.
So I think what I like to do, and I definitely run into this too, Catherine, like overcommitting and being like, oh dear God, I said I would do 5 workshops this month, and I've got children, and like there's all this other stuff going. I'm coaching soccer, and it's definitely been my month too. So I think what I look at there is like, how can I make each of those things themselves simpler? So like if you've committed to doing a bunch of workshops, can you do the same workshop for all of those people so that you can like rinse and repeat? Can you? Like I love Amy Porterfield had a great episode. Trying to remember who the guest speaker was, but it was talking about doing B-level work and how it sounds bad, like to do B-level work instead of shooting for the A+. But she talks about really how like, can you remove some stuff or just do a little bit less so that everything takes you a little less time and isn't so much pressure, but you're still producing a B-level outcome, which is really great.
Yeah, it is. B's are awesome.
Yeah. So I think, especially for high achievers, sometimes you have to talk yourself down and say, like, I'm just going to do not necessarily the bare minimum, but somewhere between high achieving and the bare minimum. If you can strike that balance in those times when you're feeling a little overwhelmed, let some of this stuff go. That might mean like you're promoting some things a little bit less than you would, or you're not adding all the bells and whistles in, but you're still there and showing up and doing the job.
Yeah, I love that. So good.
And then on the back end,
Chelsea said in the chat, she said, I love that. Permission to get sometimes we just need that, right? Like we just need to say, you know what? Okay, well, I would love to do this, but it's going to be done at this level, or I'm not going to have, even one of the things for me that I wrote down in my brainstorming, because we have our monthly planning party on Friday. And so I had been waiting to schedule those emails. I think maybe they are scheduled, but I was going to go back because last month we talked about some improvements to the worksheet. And so I had told everyone on the call, okay, next month I'll try to have the new worksheet. And I have that on my list. And I'm like, you know what? It's not going to happen. They can handle the old worksheet for another month. It's going to be okay. Right, you guys? Because you're awesome. And I was like, it's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. They still have a worksheet. It doesn't have the new stuff on it. But that's fine. It's been a month for me. Like, it's just been one of those months.
And you're going to show up and give value.
So many people. I don't know if it's an October thing, but everyone says October with clients, with whatever, is just like, it's very interesting. Anyway.
Yeah. And there's a lot of change going on in like our personal lives usually around this season too. So The other thing I want to say is like on the back end of that, when you find yourself coming out of a season where you're really overcommitted, a month, a couple of weeks, whatever it is, to like just spend a couple of minutes reflecting and seeing what you committed to and making sure that you would want to commit to those things again. So, would you want to work with those people again and do those collaborations? Would you want to say yes to those certain things? Or would you want to, do a bunch of extra work with clients that maybe you should have said no, just so you can start to reflect and see what you might want to do differently next time to prevent the same thing from happening again.
Yes, totally. And not even one of the things that is coming up for me, like I talk all the time about and the time and energy formula and how we think about the time we need to prepare for something and we think about the execution, but the third piece is that recovery. And so what I did not plan in, I planned all my prep really well for the month of October, but I did not plan recovery. I did not plan being out of the office for a whole week, 9 days. And then like the recovery time, like I didn't have my half day blocked of this is my getting back into things. So it's like, I think it's like reflecting on the actual things we do, but also do we give ourselves enough time? What were our boundaries like around those tasks? And that takes it like even like deeper, but I find that that's where I can still sometimes trip up a little bit.
Yeah, me too. I call it white space. Like you just need to have a little bit of built-in white space.
Yeah.
And sometimes I definitely forget to build that in.
Yeah, it can be so easy. So I love that. Does anybody else have any questions as you were going through this or something, even just something like an aha moment that you had or a challenge as you were going through? Please drop that in the chat. Also, a couple of the girls gave me permission and said, yeah, it's great. It's totally fine if we don't have a new worksheet for Friday. So thanks, guys. It's being paused.
I'll say one thing I see with a lot of my clients, and this might be a question coming up for all of you, is that piece of passing things off. As like we could do a whole workshop on just delegation, and it doesn't have to be expensive, or you don't have to hire a team member in order to do these things. But that's the piece that can be really challenging. And so what this step is really about, like I would be thrilled to see a bunch of things coming off your plate from this, but really it's about just setting some intentions and saying, these are the things I could let go of, and identifying what you could do with those, and then starting to take the next action steps.
Yeah, totally. Crystal says that passing off is hard. Crystal, what's the hardest part about it for you personally? What is the most challenging? We'll just give you a moment. Ashley, you got something to say about that?
Not letting go of expectations. I feel like there's a couple of things that people say when they're not delegating. One is like they have to let people do it their way and not control how they're doing something. Like they have to let someone else just kind of take ownership of something. That's really hard. There's definitely a fear of like passing off their baby, like their business baby. They're like, no one else can do it as well as I can do it. And then there's the fear of, just the cost, and is this the right fear? But I think, when you let go of your expectations, you'll find that people really rise to the occasion and do things. Like my online business manager is amazing. Like it's like magic. I see these magical things happening in my business every day, really. And it's because I've given her permission to be her own manager.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah, it takes a while to get there.
It does. There's always that like season because you have to learn how to work with somebody else and they're figuring out your stuff. And even in like a physical office, because Crystal works in like an office director and there's lots of staff that report to her. So it's good. And that's where like the systems, having things documented, it's like you can have those kinds of things there that at least support that.
I like her little aha here where she says, it's hard to let someone take a project she would love to do, knowing there are other things that I can do. That's me with the design stuff. Like I'm not great at it, but I love it. Like I could spend all day playing around with fonts and like all this stuff.
Really?
But it takes so long for me to do those things, and I don't have the right tools, versus I could pass it off to my designer and she does it in like 20 minutes. And then I have hours back on my schedule that I can do the things that are going to like really drive my business. Yeah. So it sounds like, Crystal, you're at the same place, and I think that's about weighing the cost and saying like, if I decide I'm going to keep ownership of this thing because I love doing it, what's the cost? And am I okay with that?
That's a really good question that I think, for all of these, like if we're passing off or pausing, like if I don't pause this, what's the cost? Mm-hmm. If I prioritize this over this, what's the cost? Like, I think that question is so key when it comes to our to-do list and like realizing like we can't do everything. So, and it's that it comes back to trade-offs, which you and I talk about all the time.
Yeah. It's first, and it's like, are you okay with it? Like, that's the other thing. Like, if you know you're going to commit to a couple extra things and your schedule is going to be full for a little bit, like you're talking about, are you okay with that? It's totally fine to do that from time to time.
Yeah, totally. As long as you've got the other support around. Right. So I told my husband on Sunday, we were planning our week. I'm like, just so you know, I've got a slow cooker ready for tomorrow. And then we're eating out of our freezer for a few days because I want to be able to just spend time with Em when I'm not working. And I don't want to have to cook after I pick her up from childcare. Like, I just want to be able to. So like, I'm pulling things out of the freezer and that's what we're doing. Right. And we're okay with that. So awesome. Yeah. Are there any final questions for Ashley before we wrap up? And again, if you guys are watching the replay and you have a question about something, make sure to pop onto Instagram, comment on one of her posts, or join the Facebook group and ask the question there. She is a very supportive person.
Thank you.
I'd love to answer your question. Just remind her, like, hey, I watched your simplified to-do list training in the quarterly. Like, remind her of where you were and what you were listening to give her some context. But
I love questions. Like, ask them. If I could be an advice columnist, I would do that all day long. So please, like, go into the group and ask the questions.
So good. So good. I love it. Well, I don't see anything else coming through. So thank you guys for joining in today, for doing the work, for working on your to-do list. I know that I had a couple little moments of like, oh, I can't do that. But it was so good. Crystal says, thank you. Yes. And thank you so much, Ashley, for
showing thank you for having me. It's great to be with your community.
Wonderful, wonderful resource. We so appreciate it. And I will make sure to get those links from you and put them in the replay so that everyone can join the Facebook group and connect with you about a one-on-one call. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm excited to connect with everyone more.
All right. Bye, guys.